Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Diverse Thinking, Different Learning. Today, we're exploring a topic that sits right at the intersection of neuroscience, technology, and learning. We're talking about how technology can be used to support neurodivergent students. We all know we live in an age where apps, assistive tools, and now AI-powered systems can transform how children with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and other learning and thinking differences learn, communicate, and thrive. Research shows that technology can serve as a bridge or a barrier, depending on how it's integrated and used. Joining me to unpack these nuances is Joan Green, a speech language pathologist, assistive technology specialist, and founder of innovative speech therapy and the Tech Life Inner Circle. Joan has helped countless families and professionals discover how technology, used creatively and purposefully, can empower neurodivergent students to communicate, organize, and learn more effectively.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Hi, Joan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I am too, and I'm so glad that Corey connected us, Corey Greenberg. She's amazing, and she's always connecting me with amazing people. So I'm just thrilled to have you here.
Yeah. So let's get started.
Yes. I mean, we're talking today, and in the intro, I talked about using technology to support neurodivergent students, and which is such a timely and important topic right now. But I'd love to talk to you about kind of what first inspired you to focus on helping neurodivergent students and families use technology to support communication and learning.
Well, it really started when I was working with adults who had had strokes and head injuries and concussions and anything neurological or tumors. And that was back when computers were just coming out. This was in the 80s. So I've been doing this a long time. And I in the 80s and 90s, and I started using software that was to teach English as a second language or to teach kids language. And I was using it with adults, if they were okay using that type of software. And I just saw the tremendous progress that my patients would make because it empowered them to practice on their own and to really improve. So this is before touch screens and before text to speech and speech to text. It was just, the old fashioned software that would cost $200 for one little piece of software. And it just grew from then. And I didn't really start working with kids, even though I'm a speech pathologist. Most people think of speech pathologists as working with students. I didn't until I had my own kids and they started growing up, and I just got more into helping families that I knew.
Right. And so much has changed from the 80s till now, as we know. I mean, it's just, and especially I think in the last 6 months to a year, there's just this rapid progression of technology and AI. And, parents and educators often see technology as a distraction rather than a tool for empowerment, which is what you're going to talk about, because that's what you've been doing and teaching others about. And the research shows that for neurodiverse learners, technology can provide predictability, control, engagement. The traditional methods often lack. So
absolutely, it gets a bad rap, and I understand. I know all the negative things about technology, but as long as it's there and it's available, we might as well make the most of it. And it's sort of anytime I see a new piece of technology, either a device or a feature, it makes my day when I can figure out how to use these readily available free tools to empower people. And just one or two small changes can really dramatically change the trajectory of success. The hard part is figuring out what to do. It's overwhelming.
Right. And figuring out which tool is best for what child, student, or adult even. Now, what are some everyday tools like built-in accessibility features or apps that can really make a meaningful difference for students who might struggle with reading, writing, organization, or focus?
Great question. And that's what I always start with when I'm working with groups of professionals or working directly with students. Those small changes that are free, like the lowest hanging fruit, like what's there already, right? So most students are using Chromebooks or computers or their phones. And so I don't start with really improving skills. I start with more the assistive technology. So, if they're having trouble with writing, sometimes, not always, and it's not always a magic solution, and it has to be configured sometimes. So I don't want to oversimplify this and make it sound like absolute magic, but speech to text. So if you have trouble writing, every single computer or anywhere that you see that blinking cursor where you can type, there's always a way to make it so you can talk and have it automatically turn into text. So that would be one. Another one is with reading. Again, not a magic bullet for everybody, but if there is always a way for free to have text read aloud. And so that's huge, right? You might want to change the voice or the speed. I mean, often you have to, customize it a little bit. You can always reduce distractions, turning on your do not disturb, getting rid of all the ads, maybe simplifying the view. Like if you're in a browser, and I can give specifics for all this, but I don't want to, sometimes people hear techie things and they just tune out.
Right.
Some people want people to know what's possible. So it's always possible to declutter a page that's, has small text and tons of ads and you just want to get at what's important. It's also always possible with tech to have captions, if somebody has auditory processing problems or ADHD and they sort of tune in and out, or they have a hearing impairment, you can always have captions that you can watch as the person is talking to support. So those are sort of the lowest hanging fruit type things that I start with.
Yeah. And I think that's an important reminder that the power isn't always a fancy software, but in knowing how to use the tools that are already available, like you've described.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I've seen how something like as simple as a text to speech can really boost independence and self-esteem in kids who are struggling.
Right. It gets a little tricky though, right? Because it depends, like what's the format? Are you in a Google Doc and you want to have that read aloud? So for that, you might need an extension, like Read and Write for Google is one of my favorites, or there's some others. Or do you want Microsoft Word and are you using Edge? And then there's a built-in tool called Immersive Reader that's there and free and easy to use. Or is it a book? Do you need a book? So does that person have access to Bookshare, which is free for all students with a documented print disability? And that you can have good voices now. And these things, like some people say they've tried it and it hasn't worked. I hear that all the time. The student rejects the voice, or you don't want to look different, and they don't want to stand out. But sometimes these days, a lot of kids are wearing headphones, to listen to things. And the voices, the AI voices now are so much better and read with expression. So a lot of times I say that if you've tried having your words turned into speech and it makes it makes things worse because it picks up your voice wrong. Well, maybe it's time to try another tool that does that, and it might work better for you. I think a lot of these tools now are picking up different accents in a way that they didn't before. And there are a lot of students that might have unclear speech, right? Dysarthria, apraxia. I mean, as a speech pathologist, I can tell what kinds of speech problems there are, but just for difficult to understand or atypical speech, there's even AI now that can figure out a person's speech pattern. Even if the person next to them doesn't understand what they're saying, the AI can, and it can sort of convert it and turn it into text, sort of like translating what the person says.
Right.
Really cool.
Yes. And it sounds like there are a lot of options now, more options than there have ever been in terms of finding that right tool that can be helpful for a student.
Right. And that's what I do. I mean, because it's overwhelming. I mean, all I do is keep up with this emerging technology, and it's tricky. It's tricky. Like who can keep up with it all? We can barely do our jobs.
I know. I feel like I get a new email every day about a new technology that has emerged and is out there. And it can be overwhelming to a lot of people.
Right. And I don't sell any of these technologies, and I don't have any special arrangements with anybody. So my bias is what I use and like and have found helpful for others. And so it's so hard to know who to trust, and it's tricky. And I offer free 15-minute phone calls for anybody anywhere. If you can't afford a consultation and you just want to know where to get started and what your options are. I do that all the time.
That's wonderful. That would be a great starting point for so many people who are trying to figure this out. There's a growing conversation about how technology, especially AI, like you mentioned, affects learning and cognitive development. And I'm thinking about psychologists who argue that learning happens when the work is hard and that struggle actually strengthens neural connections. Do you have any concern about bypassing that process and how it impacts learning and cognition?
I have major concerns about that.
Okay.
Major.
Yes.
And I have major concerns about safety and privacy, all of this and the environment. I do struggle just like everybody else struggles with a lot of these concerns. And I think that if we take too many shortcuts and find the easy way out, we're not really learning, right? And as an education system, we have to figure out, well, what do people have to know? I think we need to learn how to learn. There's a huge transformation going on here, but just like other things, it's all in how you use it and when you use it and what the purpose is, right? So if now there are all these great AI tools, and I teach a lot about them, that can summarize information, right? And you can, one of my favorite things right now is Notebook LM, which is free if you have a Google account, and you can upload PDFs, your own content, and it can summarize things for you. It can create quizzes for you. It can create a podcast for you. So it's bad if you don't have to actually learn the information yourself. But it's also really good because it can help you learn the information better, right? It's all in how it's used. And so I think that as educators, we need to empower students, to, not find shortcuts, but maybe if they have to find a good research study, let's say, they can use these summaries to help them find the best studies to actually go into the primary content and then read for themselves. It's going to, but there's potential to cheat. But back in the day, we had Cliff Notes. We've had a lot of these tools for a long time. It's just, they're more prominent now and easier to use, I think.
Yes. And that's such a nuanced point, because I think the concern is that we want to help students and we want them to benefit from technology, but we want them to do so without lifting the weights for them, so to speak, right? Because doing the cognitive work we know is actually needed to help them build the skills.
Right. But it's still hard. Because I give presentations all the time and I use AI and I try to have it help me present things in certain ways. But I find that I need to learn the information. You can't talk about something you don't know about. So I think we're going to assess knowledge in some different ways. And so if we can use the AI in a way to help us learn in a deeper way and learn how to know what to believe and not know what to believe and how to, we'll just have a different eye toward all this. Like the internet, a lot of people thought that was going to ruin education. And it can write an essay for you, but, teachers will know when the student has no clue what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the idea is that we want technology to help to extend the thinking process, but it's not going to replace it, right? The students are still going to have to think for themselves.
Right. And it encourages creativity. It really, it helps those students that need different ways to show what they know and to access information.
Yeah. And, we're talking about AI-powered tools, and they are rapidly entering education, as you know. And How do you see AI being used to thoughtfully support students' independence and confidence rather than promote like an over-reliance or even a metacognitive laziness, as some researchers describe it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a way that it can really tailor the learning process for students. You can get at that just right level of, it's easier for teachers and educators to create learning materials that stretch each user individually. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but for the differentiation of materials so that everybody can learn at their own pace. And some of these programs, can tell, get the feedback from the student and then can make things harder or easier based on how they do, and provide that scaffolded instruction. I mean, that's really amazingly great. And so acting as mini tutors, for people, and really that can enhance learning, even for the gifted. I mean, it can challenge them at a higher level where they might get bored and do worse in school because they're not challenged. And so some of these programs, if they provide that just right content, then you can use the in person, the social interaction to work on other things, not just learning content, but engaging with the content and having live discussions and debates and, showing, sharing of information. So I think all of education is really going to radically change.
I do too. And it should. It's time for it to change and to meet the needs of diverse learners. And I think that technology provides the opportunity to do that and to personalize it. And when you talk about scaffolding, I really appreciate that balance, for meeting the needs of neurodivergent students, meeting the needs of students who are along the spectrum of learning, may need some more challenging work, and those who might need more scaffolding. And it's that balance. It's meeting that balance.
And those students with real special interests, like let's say trains. I mean, you can be in a math class and you can be working on word problems, and there's ways to use AI, and it can make everything relate to trains, acceleration, and it can just, there's so many students that learn better when it pertains to real life and an area of interest, or cooking, or I don't know. And it takes the burden off of the educators to come up with that material.
Right. And as clinicians and educators, we have to model discernment, helping kids understand when to use technology and when to lean into their own problem solving. But when you can connect their interests to what is being taught, that's where you get the most engagement and motivation for learning.
And I worry about myself too, in my brain, right? Because I'm using AI and I don't want it to do all my work for me. So I tend to brainstorm whenever I'm creating a course or a presentation. I try to use my brain first and get all my ideas out and organize them. And then I think of AI as sort of a thought partner. Look at this and what areas might I, see what other ideas it comes up with. But I'm the boss. And I accept or reject what it says. And some things are wrong. We can't blindly rely on this because it's not always right? It's got these hallucinations, and there are tricks to using it. That I've come up, that a lot of people, that certain formulas or certain things to say as you're typing your response.
Right. And you often host, talking about brainstorming, you host collaborative tech brainstorming sessions. Can you tell us a little bit about what happens during those sessions and how do they help families and educators, discover practical and individualized solutions that are so important right now?
I mean, the bulk of what I do, are the one-on-one sessions. So, I mean, that's how I earn my living. And so how that works is we schedule, it's very streamlined. It all starts with a free 15-minute call. And so people, get a link, and from my website, innovativespeech.com, you can just go there and click on it, and it shows you. I only schedule those up to 4 days in advance because it fills all my free spots. So I usually do a couple of those a day, and I just get a quick sense of what where the struggles are, and I give free information and there's no pressure. But if people want sessions on Zoom with me, so they can be anywhere, we schedule sessions. Again, it's all on Calendly I use, and they pick from my free spots, and I have them fill out some forms first. And it's collaborative brainstorming, because there's no exact right or wrong with this. It depends on where the struggle is, what the environment is. I mean, as a professional assistive technology specialist, we think about the person first. It's all person-centered. And then the environment and what features they need. And then the last thing is picking the tools and then trying the tools and adjusting the tools and helping people practice using the tools. It's not, you just can't say, okay, use this, this, and this, and leave people alone. It takes time. And I like to collaborate with the school and the other therapists involved, because everybody really needs to work together.
Right. And I think so many people feel overwhelmed. I think that's something we said earlier about the number of options available to them. And, it seems like it's not about more technology. It's about finding the right tech for the person and what their needs are.
Right. And then once you find the right tech, the right features and the right tech, so something like voice typing in Google Docs, like that's a pretty popular way to use your speech and turn it into text. But how you use it, how do you use it? There are a lot of skills, right? You can't just show it to a student and expect them to be great at it, so you have to teach them how to use these things.
And is that something you do in your Tech Life Inner Circle? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the Tech Life Inner Circles, I'm always trying to find a service that meets everybody's needs. So I love the individual. I call that the individual that I spoke about before is called TWIST, Technology with Innovative Speech Therapy. So that's a minimum of 2 sessions, and you can schedule as many as you want, but it's expensive. It's $600 for 2 sessions and me reading reports and follow-up emails. And so not everybody can afford that. And then in addition to that, or if people would rather have ongoing support, I love my Tech Life Inner Circle. I'm really enjoying that. So we meet every single week, different days, different times. So to meet different needs, it's usually Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at either 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And I record, and each week a lot of people just say they feel behind. They can't keep up. They want to know about what's going on. So I do a 10-minute tech talk each week on different topics that are requested or I think everybody should know, like Notebook LM or speech to text or, ChatGPT or, specific topics that aren't overwhelming, and it's recorded, and everybody in the group gets my handouts and the link to the recording, and it's all housed in a course platform. So you can see all that I've already done if you join. And then it's 45 minutes of Ask Me Anything. So there are tutors in there and teachers in there and moms and dads and seniors, just anybody who wants help. And we do collaborative tech brainstorming in that. So they'll say, I'm trying to help a student with this, this, and this, or my mom is struggling with this, or I need to be more organized. I don't understand Google Drive and how it works. And then I do they can share their screen, or I demonstrate live what I think might be a quick stab at a good solution. So, and that's just ongoing. And, it's the Tech Life Inner Circle. You can just Google it or go to my website and there's a link. And people can join and you join for 3 months at a time. And that's less than $2 a day. So that's pretty affordable.
Yes. And I like the idea of that you're kind of guiding individuals through the exploration of these different technologies. And I think that aligns with what we see in executive functioning coaching, where support and accountability make a difference. So when you're not just trying to figure this out on your own, you actually have support in doing so.
And a lot of people like to come and just listen to the questions of others. And the people who ask the questions think, oh, this won't relate to anybody else. And then invariably other people say, oh my God, that was so helpful. I've been struggling with that and I didn't even think to ask.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really helping people move from feeling intimidated by tech to feeling empowered by it. Something like every parent, educator, and clinician could benefit from.
And I don't always know all the answers because everybody's different devices and all these features keep changing. So then I try to model how I figure out the answer. and we explore together. And you can't memorize steps all the time because things are always changing. So I talk about, the symbols of tech and how to, look for those three dots that mean more and to dig into different menus. Or I ask Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot or something, and I give very specific information. And while not always correct, often it can help lead you in the direction of solving your problem.
Right. And I'm just thinking about families and educators, clinicians who are just starting out. They want to help their clients, their children, the students in their classrooms. Is there a first step that they can take to integrate technology more effectively for a neurodivergent learner?
That's a hard question. So I do have a course called some people have said they want a course, right? Because they can go into the Tech Life Inner Circle and view all the recordings, but which recordings are best for them and where to start, or they can have a private session, but that's expensive. So I just launched the Tech Possibility Academy, because how do you know what's even possible, right? So what I've done, it's a 3-session course with 90-minute sessions that are all recorded. And I take people through what I think are the most essential technologies that will help the greatest number of people, that are the easiest to implement. And so that's what that course is. And so that's sort of a starter course. I thought at one point I would make that mandatory before joining the Tech Life Inner Circle, but I'm trying to keep all of this as flexible as possible. And that's good for parents and tutors and teachers that are or aging adults that just want to sort of catch up with what's possible.
Right. And I think that sounds like such an accessible starting point. Like I want to use these technologies. I want to help the young people in my life. I want to help myself. And especially for parents who may not realize that technology can be a lifeline and not necessarily a last resort for them.
And sometimes the parents need help, like, organizing your files. Where do you put things? Like, what's the cloud? How do you even use it? So it's sort of an introduction to everything, to help with executive functioning, to help with reading, writing, and helping people with different disabilities.
Joan, I cannot thank you enough for being here. I feel like you've got this wealth of knowledge. This topic is so important, particularly now, because the landscape of education is changing so rapidly and drastically at the same time that technology is advancing and changing rapidly and drastically. And I feel like the ability to use the changes and the updates in technology to enhance learning has never been greater.
Yeah, I mean, it really, you can either try to grab on and move forward with it, or just reject it all, and just try to hide from it. But that's not going to work, because our society is just really becoming so tech focused. Even, I've just done sessions on how to use a calendar and merging calendars and photos, and like it's not just education; it's everything. And so the people, and with students, in terms of them earning a living and maintaining independence, they really are going to have to know how to leverage the benefits of tech moving forward in the working world and using AI.
Yes. And, everything I've heard from you during this conversation is that, when technology is used with intention, it can really bridge gaps and it can foster independence and even amplify the voices of neurodivergent students. But it requires mindful use, and we have to ensure that we're building and not bypassing, again, those cognitive muscles that our kids need to thrive.
You have such a great way of putting it. That sounds like, poetry or something. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Or it can be terrible.
Right.
AI can be terrible, and it can cause mental health problems, and it can cause overwhelm, and it can hinder learning. Right. So parents and educators really need to have a grasp of the benefits, the pros and the cons. And it's tricky because we're all busy, so I'm trying to make it easy to learn the basics and then help people when they hit their pain points and help them move on to the next step, because we might as well do the best we can.
Yes. And that's why the work that you do is so important. So what is the best way for listeners to connect with you? You've talked about these amazing programs that you have. And of course, if they want to connect with you, what is the best way to connect with you to dive deeper into this topic?
I guess my website is the one place where you can get access to everything. So innovative, innovativespeech.com, innovativespeech.com. And from there, you can get it, you can find out what courses I'm running. There's a link, I believe there's a link to my Facebook page. You can get on my email list. There's a link to learn more about the Tech Life Inner Circle. I try to be good with social media and get things out there, usually under my name, Joan Lipman Green. At LinkedIn, you're welcome to connect with me. It's hard to reach people, especially the people that really need it the most. So I really appreciate this podcast and the opportunity to chat with you.
And I really appreciate you being here and sharing all this great information. And I will be sure to put links to all of that information and how to connect with you in the show notes. Thanks again, Joan. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I so appreciate you all being here for this conversation. For listeners who want to learn more, check out Joan's Tech Life Inner Circle, the Tech Possibility Academy, and Joan's upcoming workshops, all linked in the show notes. And remember, the best tech isn't the one that does the work for our kids. It's the one that helps them do the work better. Thank you again for listening. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.